when Hanli broke through to the mid-stage of the vowel. After more than 20 years of returning from the abyss of demons to Tannan, everyone suited to reflect. Hanli is now at the peak of the early stage of the vowel. Since the battle at the abyss of demons, trapped by a spatial rift, a blessing in disguise. Fortunately, this space is actually the legendary Spirit Bird Garden. There are plenty of spiritual energy and spiritual herbs inside. But to leave this space, one must at least have mid-stage cultivation to forcefully open the rift. Otherwise, one would be trapped inside for a lifetime. Hanli no longer hesitated and began to take action. Music, you should first pick all those spiritual medicines. We will start refining the elixir from today. Hanli pursed her lips and said without hesitation, music, on the side, naturally heard the conversation between Hanli and the big-eyed deity. After hearing that there was a way to leave this space, he felt relieved. He never wanted to experience the feeling of being trapped again. So at this moment, he smiled sweetly and answered with a sound. Immediately took a pile from Hanli's hands, jars and bottles, lightly flew to the side, started to handle those spiritual herbs in the tomb. Hanli was in the middle of the stone pavilion, unceremoniously sat down, once again took out that piece, documenting ancient recipes for the refined elixirs, carefully studied the method for refining the cloud descending pill. The spiritual herbs here are limited. Hanli naturally did not dare to be the slightest bit careless in refining this pill. In Ningju of the Southern Jade Kingdom, it is right next to the location of the Abyss of Demons, an inconspicuous small boat in Kangju. Inside this boat, in stark contrast to the densely wooded mountainous areas of Kangju, everywhere is yellow earth and barren slopes, with trees and rivers appearing. The cultivators residing in this area are also very few. Only a few small cultivation families occupy this area, a handful of low-quality spiritual veins, yet they live carefree. No one competes with them for anything. In the southwest of Ningju, there is a mountain range called Lingling Mountain. It is one of the few places with spiritual veins in this area. This Lingling Mountain is not too small in size. It spans over 100 miles in width. However, the mountain range's forest veins are only a mere 10 miles or so. It is merely the main peak of Lingling Mountain, and to nearby small hills that barely allow for meditation and cultivation. Yet, in such a small place, there are simultaneously 3 immortal cultivation families living here, each occupying one of the 3 peaks. The Huang, Li, and Wang families are forced to settle in Ningju, a place lacking in spiritual energy. Of course, they are all minor families of little renown. Even the strongest among them, the royal family, cannot boast of much, not to mention the Ya family. Even the Juji family has only 2 members. The rest of the disciples are mostly low-level disciples in the practice stage, with many being at the 3rd or 4th level of cultivation. In fact, the 3 families have several thousand descendants who lack spiritual roots, having to live on the outskirts of Lingling Mountain. Despite being so close to each other, the 3 families can coexist peacefully without conflicts. Their usual relationships are quite good, and even in the past century, there have been numerous intermarriages among the disciples of the 3 families, forming bonds of kinship to trace its origins. Yet it is this Lini Mountain. Although the quality of the Lini vein is really not that great, the 3 families have a mysterious spiritual spring at the summit. This spring, although not the kind found in spiritual eyes, is a rare spiritual object, but it is still a magical resource. Using the water from this spring, along with some spiritual herbs soaked in phosphor tea, can allow those at the first grounding stage, below the 5th or 6th layer of Che training, to be less prone to damage and easily startled, which is greatly beneficial for future cultivation. This is also one of the main reasons why the 3 families, although they know this place is really not a good place for cultivation, still grit their teeth and persist in staying here. However, although this spring has such a strange effect, it cannot be used all year round, but only at fixed times each year. On a specific day, this spring will gush forth from underground. Each time the spring water is pitifully small, not enough for the 3 families to share. Thus, after a discussion among the elders of the 3 families in their early years, they simply decided to seal this spring, opening it only once every 10 years. The accumulated amount of spring water would be completely sufficient for the 3 families to use at once, and every 10 years. It just happens to be the 3 families, the time for the growth of the newly initiated disciples. It won't cause the problem of the spiritual spring being wasted or squandered. This mere spiritual spring forces the 3 families to come together, to jointly protect and use such spiritual items, and open the spiritual spring once every 10 years, for the young disciples in the family to take good spiritual essence. And on this day, At the peak of Lingling Mountain, a grand ceremony for opening the spiritual spring is being held. In front of a black mountain wall over 100 feet high, several dozen disciples from the three families are lined up vertically. Everyone is excitedly looking at everything in front of them. The oldest of these disciples is only around 16 or 17 years old. The youngest is just 11 or 12. Most of their cultivation levels are around the third or fourth layer of Che refinement. There are even many who are only at the first or second layer of Che refinement. At the very front of the crowd, there are a dozen or so older cultivators. All are at least at the 10th layer of Che refinement. Among them, there are 3 elderly men. Their cultivation has already entered the foundation establishment stage. One is in the middle stage, and 2 are in the early stage. These dozen or so highly skilled cultivators are in front of the stone wall, holding various magical tools in their hands, chanting spells continuously. They are performing the ritual to remove the restrictions of the formation. Opposite the tall stone wall, stuck on top are various sizes, 7 or 8 colored static captives, flickering with a dim and bright spiritual light. At this moment, led by 3 old men, a dozen disciples with a sudden storm sound in their mouths became urgent. At the same time, in the hands of the 3 men glowed with white light. After a moment, the 3 old men almost simultaneously shook their hands. A was cast, transforming into a wave of rosy light that swept away the captives on the stone wall. After a slight tremor in the rosy light created by the all floated down. At this time, several disciples holding jade boxes from behind, who had been on standby for a long time, rushed forward to pick up these spiritual symbols one by one, carefully storing them in the river, immediately retreated again. This kind of road, for a small family like theirs, is also a rare treasure, not to be lost. Without, the stone wall emitted a hazy white spiritual light. At the same time, it gently trembled. Suddenly, including the 3 old men, the front disciples, simultaneously raised their delicate strands of light of various colors, shot out from among them. They all vanished into the white light, disappeared without a trace. The shaking of the stone wall intensified. Then, amidst the rumbling of the earth, the stone wall gradually split in half from the middle, revealing a large semicircular opening about 10 tenths wide. The young disciples from the 3 families behind all widened their eyes. They hurriedly stared at the opening, examining it closely. Those who knew that this spring could be a treasure for the 3 families were ordinary family disciples. They might only have this one chance in their lives, to see the spring with their own eyes. So naturally, they didn't want to miss anything. In fact, the true appearance of this spring could be clearly described by a 3-year-old child. In the family, it is a 3-jong long and 1-jong wide pool made of pure white jade, located deep within 10 jong of the opening. At a glance, only a small portion of the pool's clear, transparent spring water is visible, extremely pure, seemingly untouched by dust. What makes it even more extraordinary is that from this pool, a faint, indescribable fragrance emanates. It subtly exudes an indescribable fragrance. It makes one feel completely relaxed after taking a whiff. Spirit lifted, the young disciples stirred restlessly. Among the 3 old men, the one in the middle, with a white face, is the elder. Suddenly, he turned around. His eyes shot out beams of golden light. He scanned the surroundings. Instantly, all the commotion quieted down. This person is none other than Huang Yuanming, an elder of the royal family. His cultivation has reached the mid-stage of foundation establishment. He can truly be considered the top cultivator of Lingling Mountain. Not only do the disciples of the royal family hold him in great respect, but even the young disciples of the Wang and Li families also regard him with the utmost respect. It's still useful to have an elder brother in the royal family. It can make these little ones obedient and well-behaved. Another elder in gray robes, seeing this, squinted his eyes. He said with a grin, "Of course, Brother Wang's cultivation has already reached the late stage of foundation establishment, right? Perhaps he could even advance another level. He might enter the late stage of foundation establishment." Another elder in a clear robe said enviously, "You 2 wise brothers are joking. Brother Wei is already of this age. How could there be another opportunity to advance? Such opportunities are only left for the younger generation. Let's quickly brew some phosphorus tea. We should brew the phosphorus tea quickly. Let these little ones take it." This time, the spring water in the pond seems to be more abundant than in previous years. "That's a good thing." Wang Yuanming chuckled after that. He humbly replied politely. The other 2 elders were naturally the elders from the other 2 families. These 2 families are even less than the royal family. They could barely cultivate 1 elder at the foundation stage. At the car door, Wang Yuanming had known these 2 for many years, so he took their earlier words lightly. The other two elders also smiled calmly, no longer mentioning the matter. They began to instruct their respective families on the secret method of brewing tea. Their disciples stepped forward and immediately began to brew. Each family had disciples, who flew out, heading straight for the pond. But just as everyone was watching, before these disciples reached the edge of the pond, an astonishing accident suddenly occurred. Suddenly, from about 3 or 4 jong above the pond, a low rumbling sound of thunder erupted. Following that, a flash of 5-colored light appeared, and a dark sphere materialized out of thin air in an instant. Then, this dark sphere, devoid of light, a strange sound emitted from Xyla, twisting and deforming, purified into a long spatial crack. Then with a thud, in the midst of the redecorated stunned crowd, a figure was swept out by a burst of colorful clouds, just happened to fall into the bath below. Then the spatial crack flashed wildly a few times, suddenly disappeared without a trace. After this person fell into the pool, a light murmur escaped his lips. He stood up with a gentle sway. After glancing at the crowd in front of the pool, a bizarre expression appeared on his face. The 3 families of decorators led by Huang Yu Onming were already so shocked that they couldn't utter a word. That figure was a young man dressed in a green robe. Surprised to find so many decorators present, he felt a bit unexpected, and a hint of embarrassment flashed across his face. But then he returned to his usual demeanor. A flash of clear light appeared on him. In the pool, the wetness was like a mountain. Yet in an instant, the moisture evaporated unusually. Where is this place? Is it still Donghua country? The man casually floated out of the pool. Then his gaze shifted. Then, the gaze shifted. It was very easy to find the modifications present. The one with the deepest cultivation, Huang Yu Onming. He asked calmly. His words were filled with an undeniable tone. This is Ningju in the Eastern Yu Kingdom. May I ask your esteemed name? Senior. Could you please enlighten me? Mingui restored. Tomorrow morning, I will use the divine stone to scan the cultivation results of the man in front of me. His heart was greatly shaken. He could not discern the slightest depth of the other party's cultivation. This indicates that the other party is at least a cultivator at the stage of receiving orders. Moreover, the appearance of the other party is indeed extremely strange. Naturally, he did not dare to show any negligence. After bowing deeply, he cautiously returned to the other 2 elders. They also sensed the unfathomable depth of the cultivation. Shocked in their hearts, they also bowed deeply, with a face full of forced smiles. The young man from Mingzhou blinked. His expression remained unchanged, but he murmured a repeated phrase. A hint of contemplation appeared on his face. This person was naturally facing Han Li, who had just escaped from the remains of the spirit bird. At this time, it had already been 27 years since the battle in the Demonfall Valley. Huang Yu Onming and the others. It has already been 27 years. Huang Yu Onming and others made adjustments, while cautiously facing Han Li. His gaze couldn't help but sneak a glance at the direction of the pool. It turned out that the water from the spiritual spring in the small half of the pool had been stirred up by Han Li's fall, immediately reducing it by more than half. The remaining spring water in the pool was left with a pitiful thin layer. The 3 old fellows, seeing this situation, naturally felt a pang of heartache, but facing the unfathomable Han Li, they could only feign ignorance and force a smile, lest they offend this senior expert and bring great disaster to their families. As Han Li evaporated the water stains from his body, he also caught a whiff of the strange fragrance in the spring. At this moment, after the color of Chen Ying faded, he instinctively turned to glance at the pool behind him. Han Li's seemingly casual glance made the 3 old men across feel uneasy for a long time. They had guarded the spiritual spring for so many years, but they hoped it wouldn't catch his eye. If that were the case, they could only offer it up with both hands, not daring to refuse. His gaze merely swept over the pool, without any hint of greed. Instead, he turned back and calmly said to the people, I haven't entered the room for a long time. I'm a bit unfamiliar with the recent events in Tannan. 3 fellow cultivators, could you introduce some major events that have happened in recent years? Of course, if the senior doesn't mind, we can go to our royal hall. Let me serve tea to the senior. Senior and questions. I will definitely speak without reservation. Seeing that Han Li showed no interest at all in their spiritual spring, Huang Yu Onming felt greatly relieved. He hurriedly said respectfully. The other 2 elders also felt the same relief in their hearts. Well, there are indeed quite a few things I want to ask. Then I apologize for bothering the 3 fellow cultivators. Han and I looked over. She saw the relatively young disciples from the 3 families in the distance. After a moment's thought, she nodded in agreement. How could we entertain a senior of such stature? It is our royal honor. Huang Yu Onming was overjoyed. He said with a beaming smile, He then instructed a few disciples on something, urging them to quickly fly back and make some preparations, to avoid any shortcomings in the arrangements, which might inconvenience Han Li. Only then did he personally lead Han Li away from this place, left this place, walking towards a pavilion in the middle of the mountain peak. The other two elders similarly instructed a few clansmen, and hurriedly followed after, never leaving the cervical spine. You three families live together in one place. This is quite rare. On the way, Han Li asked a few questions, and got a general idea of the specific location here and the situation of the three elders. He said with some surprise, "Senior, you jest. We are truly unable to establish ourselves elsewhere. That's why we are stuck here." Huang Yuanming replied with a bitter smile, "I see that the young disciples in your clan seem to have some decent talents. Why haven't you sent them to those major cultivation sects with their qualifications? Even if they cannot be called direct disciples, it wouldn't be impossible for them to become external disciples." Han Li showed a strange expression, quite interested. "Senior, you may not know, although there are many cultivation sects in our Donghua kingdom, most of them have fixed cultivation families supplying them. This place within the sect, or is simply controlled by some families together. We, as such a small and lowly sect, have no qualifications to catch the eye of these sects. Who has the qualification to enter these sects' eyes? Occasionally, one or two particularly outstanding disciples emerge from within the sect. However, they do not dare to easily let them join other sects. The clan still needs them to support the sect." Among the two elderly men, one has a round and plump face. The somewhat chubby old man carefully explained to Han Li. There was a hint of helplessness on his face. They, as clan elders, might have advanced even further in their cultivation if they had been willing to join a major sect in their youth. But for the sake of the family's continuation, they could only stay behind with regret. This is also the helplessness of small families. Han Ling's gaze flickered a few times, and he nodded lightly. He did not continue to ask further, because not far ahead, a series of pavilions, and the Zhuange Tower stood tall. The old man led Han Li straight to the highest pavilion among them. Moments later, they arrived at the entrance of the pavilion, where two rows of young female disciples were already waiting respectfully. "Senior, please come in. Our Lingling Mountain does not produce many spiritual herbs or fruits, but we do have a type of spiritual tea that is quite good. Senior can have a few more cups," Huang Yuanming said as he spoke. "Senior, please come in. Our Lingling Mountain does not produce any spiritual herbs or fruits. There is only one type of spiritual tea that is quite good. Senior can drink a couple more cups," Huang Yuanming said while speaking. The border general Han Li was led into the hall of the attic. Han Li was not polite either. She strode into the pavilion. The hall was not too big. It was only about 20 to 30 zhang in area, but for a small family, it was more than enough. Under the gaze of the three elders, Han Li calmly took a seat at the head of the table. The three old men stood obediently in front of her, not daring to sit with Han Li. Their cultivation levels and status were too far apart. Han Li did not pretend to be humble. At this moment, a beautiful female disciple approached with a tea tray. After serving Han Li a cup of fragrant tea, she carefully retreated. Han Li picked up the teacup, casually tasting it. Her heart felt a bit bitter, but after a moment, her tongue was filled with saliva, and it became fragrant. Indeed, it was a rare spiritual tea. The corners of her mouth moved slightly, revealing a hint of a smile. She praised, "Senior's embroidery is unfathomable," but her expression was somewhat unfamiliar. Could it be that the senior is not from the Eastern Jade Kingdom? The round-faced elder couldn't help but ask about this matter. "I am indeed not from the Eastern Jade Kingdom," Han replied. "You don't need to worry about anything. After clarifying a few things, I will immediately leave this place and return to where I came from. I won't linger here with you. Not mentioning my name means nothing. I simply forgot." The round-faced old man showed a half-smile expression. "Senior, you are overthinking. For us to meet you is already a great honor, but there may be some ill intentions to drive you away." Huang Yuanming was startled. The blind man's face changed dramatically as he spoke. "I also came from DJ's embellishment. I naturally know some of your concerns and expectations. As long as your answers satisfy me, I wouldn't mind giving you some benefits. After all, you being able to see me is also a kind of fate." The round-faced old man was about to explain something with a puzzled expression, but waved his hand. With a calm expression, he said, "If you have anything you want to know, just ask. Although our family is not large, we are quite well informed about some news. We will definitely satisfy you, Senior." Upon hearing this, Huang Yuanming, overjoyed in his heart, it made him appear extremely respectful. Hanli smiled slightly. Naturally, he wouldn't give any benefits. It's likely these people wouldn't deceive him with lies. However, if there were some benefits, they would naturally respond with more sincerity. Whether it's something that can be said or not, they would probably take the initiative to mention it. Last time the Devil's Abyss opened, many cultivators went treasure hunting. You all pay such respect to King Ju. You should know a bit about it, right? First, give me a rough overview of the situation. Hanli glanced at the three of them and said calmly, the matter of the Devil's Abyss, I naturally know. Upon hearing Hanli only ask about this matter, although Wang Yuanming felt a bit surprised, he immediately responded without hesitation. Then he slightly organized the relevant information and continued to explain. A large number of cultivators entered the Devil's Abyss to seek treasures. This happened over 20 years ago. Because the Ghost Spirit sect found a reliable entry method, hundreds of cultivators entered this area to search for ancient cultivators' treasures. But the dangers within this area are indeed extraordinary. With so many high-level cultivators entering, most of them only wandered outside the area. There are still a large number of modifications. They died in the outer bones and spatial rifts. The modifications that can survive the bones are still less than half of what they used to be. And worse still, when the Ghost Spirit sect entered the inner bones, they inadvertently released to intelligent beings. Ancient demons that devour reasons emerged. The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect and others fell on the spot. These two demons are indeed incredibly powerful. It is said that the modifications that entered the inner ancient had a fierce battle with them. Even the predecessors from the three major modifications and the divine teacher of Mulan took action to eliminate the demons, but they only managed to kill one of them. The other one escaped safely from the demon abyss. The modifications participating in the siege suffered heavy casualties. Many well-known predecessors fell in this battle. However, the demon abyss truly lives up to its reputation as an ancient modification school. It is said that the modifications that survived and left this ancient place all gained something to varying degrees. There were even a few predecessors who really found elixirs and techniques to extend their lifespan and break through their realms inside. This caused a sensation throughout the Southern Heaven cultivation world. As a result, many modifications became envious, disregarding the unstable spatial rifts, and recklessly re-entered the dangerous area. The unstable deadline has been reset, once again borrowing the ghostly gate to invest in the teleportation array, entering the abyss of demons. However, this batch of cultivators who entered did not have a single person come out. This frightened the other cultivators who were already eager to act. The abyss of demons once again became a forbidden area. No one dared to venture in. Moreover, a demon escaped from the abyss of demons. What happened to this demon later? Hearing this, Hanli felt a chill in her heart. Her expression instantly darkened. Regarding this demon, Senior, you do not ask. I also want to inform you, Senior, because it was this demon that nearly brought a great calamity to the entire Southern Sky cultivation world. Wang Yuanming, hearing Hanli's inquiry, changed his expression slightly and said. Hanli furrowed her brows, but remained silent, waiting for the other party to continue. Originally, when this demon first escaped, some seniors had expressed that such demons cannot survive long in our human realm. Eventually, they would return to their own realm. Therefore, at the beginning, no one took this too seriously, but unexpectedly, this demon's realm continued, recklessly revealing the surprise attack. High-level modifiers devour the reasons for modification, used to restore vitality. In just a short span of years, 6 or 7 Yuanying modifiers have successively fallen into its trap. The person shows no signs of returning. At this time, other modifiers finally realized this demon doesn't know what method it used, since there is a way to keep itself in this realm for a long time. Thus, the 3 major modifiers came forward together, specifically targeting a dozen or so mid-level reasons. The senior organized a corneal team to surround this demon. However, this demon's ankle is abnormal. It does not correspond to the cornea at all, but specifically targets isolated modifiers. It even attacked the Mulan people. As a result, the Mulan people also specially dispatched a group of high-level masters to join the corneal team. Since then, this demon has begun to be unable to escape from the modifiers and spales, forced to flee everywhere, in a sorry state. But such results made this demon even more frantic. But this result only made the demon even more frenzied. In the end, not only did he attack high-level modifiers, but he also went crazy and frequently targeted low-level modifiers. It was said that in the last few months, he bloodily wiped out more than a dozen cultivation families and several small sects. These families and sects had no one capable of stopping this demon, but because of this, he was ultimately cursed by a dying elder of a demonic sect, who planted a certain secret on him. He was eventually caught up by the demon team for sacrifice at the soul-falling mountain in the Fengdu kingdom. It was said that this demon, whose vitality had fully recovered, had a cultivation level that nearly purified the divine artifact modifiers. Two great cultivators and one Mulan master joined forces to deal with this demon. That battle was so intense that it darkened the sky and earth. Other modifiers couldn't even intervene. The entire main peak of the soul-falling mountain was flattened. When it came to this point, Huang Yuanming paused for a moment, and a hint of astonishment appeared on his face. Han Li was equally shocked upon hearing this. The three Ming brothers seemed to have no intention of quickly taking down the drum membrane, even though they were working together in the later stages. This drum membrane, which had restored its vitality, was likely truly equivalent to a transformation period modifier. Whether this membrane would be destroyed in this battle remains to be seen. Will this membrane be destroyed in this battle? Han Li asked calmly. The younger generation is not clear about this. Some say that this demon was tragically killed on the spot in the encirclement of the heavy refinement room. Others say he used an incredible secret technique to miraculously escape from the siege. The younger generation's family has limited capabilities. They cannot determine the truth of this matter. However, since that encirclement, this demon has been silent in our Tannan. It is indeed true. I'm afraid he has really been completely destroyed. Wang Yuanming hesitated for a moment and expressed some speculative thoughts. Completely destroyed. Han Li stroked his chin, pondering slightly, but in his heart, he was skeptical. If this demon had truly been eliminated, Wei Waiyu and the others would not be so secretive. Most likely, something unexpected happened, causing the truth to be obscured. They deliberately did not come forward to clarify this matter. However, the disappearance of that demon is indeed a bit strange. Could it be that after this battle, the demon was severely injured and had to hide to recuperate? Or did he simply leave Tianan? Han Li thought for a moment and felt that both possibilities could be true. It is difficult to determine which situation it is. More likely, he has temporarily put this matter out of his mind, unable to determine that situation. More likely, this matter was temporarily pushed to the back of their minds. Is there any other major event happening? Regardless of which country's affairs, feel free to share. Han Li calmly inquired about other matters. Indeed, there have been other events over the years. However, compared to the incident in the Abyssal Demon Valley, they are hardly worth mentioning. The only noteworthy event, which also caused quite a stir, occurred shortly after the disappearance of the demons. Off the coast of the Western Kingdom, a strange large whirlpool suddenly appeared on the sea. From this whirlpool, a massive amount of spiritual energy was ejected, purify the nearby waters of the boundless sea. Moreover, surrounding this whirlpool, 7 small islands emerged from the seabed. Each island was rich in spiritual energy, possessing rare top-tier spiritual veins. Regarding the ownership of these islands, the 3 major sects even joined forces again to hold a conference for acquisition. Many sects participated in it, and as a result, the ownership of these small islands was granted to 7 major cultivation sects. It is said that the whirlpool is unfathomable, with numerous cultivators attempting to delve inside to uncover its secrets. However, once they enter the whirlpool, they encounter immense pressure, and the deeper they go, the greater the pressure becomes, making it unbearable. It became unbearable. I heard that the Supreme Yang Master among the 3 great modifiers has been explored deeply once. However, after delving about 3,000 zhang deep, he couldn't bear the pressure heavier than 10,000 gold. He had no choice but to retreat like a centipede. Huang Yuanming thought for a moment, and immediately recounted the above. Such things happened in the great whirlpool. Han Li showed a hint of surprise on her face, and asked in astonishment, how could a junior dare to deceive a senior? This matter caused a sensation for several years, before gradually calming down. As long as the senior asks others a little, they will know the truth of this matter, Huang Yuanming said with a forced smile. Han Li nodded, feeling increasingly interested in this matter, but continued to inquire about other things, especially regarding the actions of the Mulan people and the righteous and demonic factions. Over the years, pressing for details, Huang Yuanming and the other 2 elders spoke freely, showing no intention of concealing anything. All questions were mainly answered by Huang Yuanming, while the other 2 elders occasionally interjected to add details, ensuring Han Li's satisfaction. Soon, Han Li gained a general understanding of the various events that had occurred in recent years. Gained a rough understanding. She felt a sense of relief in her heart. Aside from the matter of the eardrum and the vortex, the other so-called major events were merely about some local spiritual herbs or treasures, or perhaps conflicts between two cultivation sects. These matters were utterly insignificant to Han Li, yet Han Li maintained her usual demeanor, still listening earnestly as the three recounted their stories. As for the affairs of the Luo Yun sect, Han Li did not inquire. After all, this place was too far from the Western Kingdom. Families of their lowly status could not possibly know any specific details. If she really wanted to inquire about the Luo Yun sect, she would naturally have to go to the source, or wait until she returned to the Western Kingdom to ask in detail. After listening to all three recount their narratives, a satisfied expression appeared on Han Li's face. Suddenly, a flash of clear light flickered on the table, and a pair of golden short spears appeared on the table. Thank you, three fellow Taoists, for sharing with Han. I have received many excellent items, but I do not have much to offer in return. So, I will gift this pair of golden spears to you three. Han Li said calmly. Thank you for the generous gift, Senior. This is just the right kind of weapon for street use. Huang Yuanming's gaze was fixed on the pair of golden spears. This is just the right magical tool for going out. Huang Yuanming's gaze was on that pair of golden spears, burning intention to assess, hastily attacking deeply. The city's great joy is leaking out. With the combined power of their three families, there shouldn't be a single item missing from the street's magical tools. But combined, the three families only have a few items at most. Each one is showing weakness in quality assurance. And now, just by answering a few words from Han Li, they easily obtain such treasures. Naturally, it's a mix of surprise and joy. Although this is just a lower-tier magical tool for Duan Jinj, if used in combination, it wouldn't be inferior to a top-tier magical tool. I unintentionally obtained it years ago, thought it was somewhat interesting, so I've kept it until now. Now giving it to you all, and considered wasting it? Heh. The benefits have already been given to you. I won't stay long. If there's a chance in the future, perhaps we can meet again. Han Li briefly explained the power of the Jinj, then smiled softly. A brilliant light surrounded him, suddenly transformed into a streak of blue and red and flew out of the hall. After a few flashes, he disappeared without a trace. The three old men were stunned. They didn't expect Han Li to leave just like that. Without any hesitation, a mouthful of gratitude was left unsaid. They had no choice but to swallow their words back. Immediately, the three of them turned their gazes. At the same time, they landed on the pair of golden artifacts on the table. This senior is indeed quite generous to so easily give away a pair of street-level magical tools. The old man at the origin stared at the golden artifacts. He said to the man next to him, "It depends on who the person is. For us, street-level magical tools are naturally rare and precious items. But for this senior, they are simply not worth his attention." Among the three, the old man in the white robe, who spoke the least, suddenly said with a strange expression, "Brother Wang, what do you mean by that? Your tone suggests that you seem to recognize this senior." Huang Yuanming felt a stir in his heart, and couldn't help but ask. The compassionate old man also showed a surprised expression. The white-robed old man said, "Brother Huang, you are wise all your life but foolish at times." As soon as this person appeared, he inquired about the abyss of demons, and the matters concerning those demons. Looking so young yet possessing such high cultivation, and he claims to be of cold temperament. Do you still not know who he is? Don't forget, when we were besieging those two demons in the abyss of demons, aside from the reasons for the deaths in battle, wasn't there also a renowned figure who went missing? The old man in the white robe said with a bitter smile. Are you talking about that person, Senior Han? Wang Yuanming's expression changed drastically upon being reminded. His face distorted to a round shape. The old man also realized it. He was equally shocked.